but these are things that you should definitely be able to do without a calculator. Number 1, which parabola is graphed if the function that we're talking about is y equals 2x minus 1 times the quantity x minus 6? How do you think we could figure that out? Can you look at that equation and tell if the graph should open up or open down? Yes? How? So what do we know about the equation? If it opens up, we know what? A is positive. Okay, so A is positive, it makes us smile. When A is negative, it makes a frown, right? So we have to FOIL this out. What is 2x times x? 2x squared. So that's my A term. A is 2. Is that positive or negative? It's positive. So I know it can't be this graph because this graph is frowning, and it can't be this graph. Those are both frowny graphs. Okay. So now I'm going to go down and look at these, and I'm going to say, I can do this one of two ways. I can either look at the intercepts, so I can calculate the roots, or I can look at that y-intercept. Which one do you think is going to be faster, quicker to find? The y-intercept. Yeah, the y-intercept is the c term, right? Remember that your y-intercept is c. So that's just the last, like if you think about distributing or FOIL, it's the last term from each binomial. So that's just -1 times -6. What is -1 times -6? +6. So my y-intercept is the order pair 0, +6. So does my graph cross the or the y-axis at +6 in B? No, it crosses down at -6. So it's not that graph. It's this graph. So it's not B either. The only answer that works is D. So we just did that looking at A and then looking at the y-intercept. Super easy. Okay. Question number 2. It says, given this function, what is the x-coordinate of the vertex? Well, the x-coordinate of the vertex is another way of saying the axis of symmetry. That's what I want you to find. Opposite of B over 2A. So the opposite of a -8 is a +8 over 2 times 2 equals 2. So the axis of symmetry happens when x equals 2. I want you to remember that if you don't write x equals 2 for your axis of symmetry, you get it wrong, right? Because remember, that is an equation to a vertical line. It's an equation to a vertical line. Number 3 says, given the function, what is the +0? What does that mean? When it asks me for a +0, what is it asking me to do? It's secretly saying, hey, what? Yeah, find the x-intercepts. Set the function equal to 0 and factor. So we have to set it equal to 0, and we have to factor. Set it equal to 0, and we're going to factor. So I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply them, I get -45, that when I add them, I get 4. What do you got, Jacob? +9 and -5. So this factors to x plus 9 times x minus 5. This is going to give me a -0. This is going to give me a +0. I want to know what the +0 is. So my +0 is x equals 5. My +0 is x equals 5. Number 4 says, what is the sum of the zeros? What is the sum of the zeros? Owen, what does it mean when it says find the sum of the zeros? What does the word sum mean? Add. Yeah, so we're going to add together the zeros. And finding the zeros is doing what? We just did. What is that called? Begins with an F. Factor. We're going to set it equal to 0 and factor. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me a positive 8, that when I add them, I get a negative 6. Yeah, negative 4 and negative 2. So this is 0 equals x minus 4 times x minus 2. So if my factor is negative, or is x minus 4, what is my root? It's x equals 4, positive 4. If my factor is x minus 2, my root is x equals positive 2. We have to add those together because I want the sum of those. So what is the sum of my zeros? Say it. Yeah, the sum of the zeros is 6. The sum of the zeros is 6. So it's just asking you to look at a problem a different way, right? Figure out the sum. Are we ready to go on? No, not yet. Thank you, ma'am. All right, number 5. It says, given this function, f of x equals x squared plus kx plus c with zeros at negative 4 and 3, we have to figure out the value of k. So here's what I know. I know that if x equals negative 4, that's the root. What factor did that come from? Came from the factor x plus 4. Absolutely. And if x equals positive 3, x equals positive 3, what factor did that come from? X minus 3, right? X minus 3. Okay. So the only way that I can make this function look like this is if I do what to it? I have to distribute or what? FOIL out, right? So what's x times x? Do you guys want me to draw a box for this? Do you remember? No? Okay. X times x is, sorry, Viviana, go ahead. X squared. What is x times negative 3, Viviana? Negative 3x. And 4 times x? Positive 4x. And a positive 4 times a negative 3 is a negative 12. When I combine these two terms in the middle, I find out that f of x equals x squared plus 1x minus 12. Brandon, what is the value of k? Look where k is in the original question. It's 1. K equals 1. K equals 1. Question number 6. Sorry. The length of a rectangle. Well, first thing I'm going to do is just draw a rectangle. I'm going to label this side W and I'm going to label this side L. It says the length is 9 inches longer than the width. What does that look like? Trinity's not here. Sorry. What does that look like, Catherine? How do I show 9 inches longer than the width? What expression is 9 inches longer than the width? W plus 9. It tells me that the area of my rectangle is 70 square inches. So let's see. If I want to find the area, I have to take the length times the width, right? I'm going to set it equal to the area, which is 70. All right, Angeli, what do you want to do next? How am I going to solve this? What do I do? Yeah, I'm going to multiply. I'm going to distribute. So W times W is W squared. W times 9 is equals, all right. So I have W squared plus 9W minus 70 equals 0. So I'm really looking for two numbers that I can multiply together to get negative 70, that when I add them, I get 9. So this is the non-calculator part of the test. So when we first started factoring, we listed the factors. Let's see, 1 and 70 is ending in a 0, so that means it's divisible by 2. 2 and 35. What do you guys know about 35? That's divisible by what? 5. So let's see, 5 times what equals 70? 5 will go into 7 one time with 2 left over. That gives me 2 and a 0, 20. 5 goes into 20 4 times. I think you just found the numbers you needed. Negative 5 and positive 14. We did that without a calculator. So W minus 5 times W plus 14 equals 0. Well, that means that W is 5 or W is negative 14. Can my width be negative 14? Can my width be negative 14? No, can't have a negative. So what is my width? Well, my width is 5. And what is my unit? Inches. 5 inches. Well, if my width is 5 inches, what is my length? Well, W is 5, so it's 5 plus 9, or 14 inches. So when you take your quiz tomorrow and you do your question like this, it says draw a sketch of your rectangle. Make sure you label it, including your algebraic expression, right? This is the algebraic expression label, right? We have to know that. But then you need to solve it, right? You're not done until you figure out what the dimensions of your rectangle are. You have to figure out both dimensions. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something like this, okay? All right. The next one, it says, what is the smallest of 3 consecutive positive integers? So let's see. We're just talking about consecutive integers, first, second, and third. So I want consecutive integers, and I only want the positive answer. So x plus 1, x plus 2. So I have 3 consecutive integers, and it says if the product of the smaller 2, so I'm going to take the smallest integer x and multiply it by the next integer, x plus 1. If the smaller of the 2 is equals 2 more than, that means I'm going to add 2 to something. Well, what am I doing? I'm adding 2 to 7 times the largest. 7 times the largest integer. So that's what this looks like. So let's see. I have to do what, Peyton? What do I need to do to get the parentheses all gone? Yeah, we're going to multiply or distribute. Absolutely. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is, awesome, equals, keep going. 7 times x is, perfect. And 7 times 2 is, perfect. Don't forget you have that little plus 2 dangling at the end. So if I combine my like terms, I have x squared plus 1x equals 7x plus 16. All right. Kenneth, not here. Jacob, next step. Trying to solve it. Next step. What do you want me to subtract? Yep, I'm going to subtract 7x and 16 from both sides. Minus 7x and minus 16.
Ms. Bischoff, may I go to the bathroom?
Can you wait until we're done with instruction?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So x squared, let's see, 1 minus 7 is minus 6, so negative 6x minus 16 equals 0. X squared minus 6x minus 16 equals 0. So what am I looking for when I factor? Two numbers that multiply to negative 16 that add to. Okay, so what are they? Negative 8 and positive 2. So this is x minus 8 times x plus 2 equals 0. Well, the opposite of the factor is the root. So the opposite of x minus 8 is positive 8. The opposite of x plus 2 is negative 2. All right. Does it say that we can have positive and negative integers? Or are we specifically looking for a type? Yeah, we're only looking for positive integers. This is not positive, so cancel it out. Negative 2 isn't positive. I want to see that. Like, I want to see that you know you're not supposed to be using that one, right? So what are my answers? Well, we just said that x equals 8 and x plus 1. Well, 8 plus 1 is 9 and 8 plus 2 is 10. So this is a must on your test, but also seeing that you know this one works and this one doesn't. Okay. Does that make sense? What I'm looking for? Okay. Your next question is about a right triangle. A right triangle. So remember that the two sides that make up the 90-degree angle are called the legs. The two sides that make up the 90-degree angle are called the legs. It says that the larger leg of the right triangle is 7 centimeters longer than the smaller leg. So I'm going to call the smaller leg X. That means that the larger side, how do I show that it's 7 centimeters longer than the small side? X plus 7, yes ma'am. And it says the hypotenuse is 8 centimeters longer than the small side. So what's the hypotenuse expression going to be? X plus 8. All right. Remember that in order to solve this, we have to take each leg and square it and set it equal, like add them together and set it equal to the square of the hypotenuse. So let's see. That means that I have to take x and square it plus the other leg, x plus 7, and square that and set it equal to the hypotenuse, which is x plus 8, and square that. So that's quite a bit of distributing taking place, right? So I'm going to write this out. The first one I'll do using distribute or FOIL. The second one I'll do using a box. Okay, so we have to figure out what x plus 7, the quantity squared, is. That's x plus 7 times x plus 7. So walk me through it, Kareem. X times x is what? X times x is, okay, x times 7 is what you said last time. Okay, 7 times x is, same thing, 7x, and 7 times 7 is 49. So I can combine these two terms in the middle. This gives me x squared plus 14x plus 49. So for the x plus 8, the quantity squared, I'm going to draw a box just to remind you guys that you do know how to do this. So I have x and positive 8, x and positive 8. So this is the area model, right? X times x is x squared. X times 8 is 8x. 8 times x is 8x. And 8 times 8 is 64. What do you typically do on the diagonal? Say it loudly so I can hear you. Yeah, you typically are able to combine the like terms. So I have x squared plus 16x plus 64. All right, so let's rewrite this. X, the quantity squared, is just that, x squared, plus x plus 7, the quantity squared. Well, that's this guy right here, plus x squared plus 14x plus 49 equals x plus 8, the quantity squared. Well, that's this right here, x squared plus 16x plus 64. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because I want to ask you guys something. Do you remember when we learned how to solve equations, right? One of the most important things that we learned about solving equations is if you have the exact same thing on one side of the equal sign and the exact same thing on the other, what can you do with them? Opposite sides. Like I would technically subtract x squared from both sides. But really we said, hey, if you have an x squared on the left side and you have an x squared on the right side, same exact term, same exact sign, they just cancel each other out. Do you guys remember that? Okay, so now I don't have to combine like terms over here. I've just canceled out the x squareds. So I'm going to subtract 16x and 64. I'm going to subtract 16x and 64. So now I have x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. So I'm looking for two numbers that will multiply together and give me negative 15, that when I add them, I'm going to get negative 2. What do you think? What do you think, Christian? Two numbers that multiply together to 15. 5 times 3, right? 5 times 3. One of those has to be positive and one has to be negative. Which one is going to give you a sum of negative 2? Yeah. Okay. Help him out, Jameson. Negative 5. So this factors to be x minus 5 times x plus 3. We know that x minus 5 is going to equal 5. And we know the factor x plus 3 is going to equal negative 3. Can we have a negative measure? Can one of the sides of our triangle be negative? Nope. Cross that out. You guys know that you can't have a negative measure when you're doing dimensions. So that means that this equals 5 centimeters. So what is x plus 7? Well, that's 5 plus 7, and 5 plus 7 is 12 centimeters. What is x plus 8? Well, that's 5 plus 8, and that's 13 centimeters. So again, tomorrow, I'm looking for this. Not only do you have to like show all your work, but you got to show me the measures when you're all done. You got to show me what you end up with. So basically, you got to plug it back in and simplify those expressions, okay? We're almost done. Number 9, the function f of x equals negative 5x squared plus 40x represents a kangaroo's jumps. So I've got this kangaroo, it's jumping, boop, just like that. So the f of x is the height. So like this vertical represents the height, but the x coordinate or the horizontal represents the distance that it jumps forward, the horizontal distance, how far it jumps forward. So we need to figure out what the horizontal distance is. Well, we know that it starts at 0, so we really are just looking for this number right here to figure out how far it jumps. Well, if I want to know the zeros, that means I have to set it equal to 0 and factor. So negative 5x squared plus 40x. What's the greatest common factor that I can take out of there, Coral? Negative 5. Do you see a variable that I can take out as well? Yes, absolutely. I can take a negative 5x out. So when I do that, I have 0 equals, I pulled out a negative 5x. Well, 5x squared divided by negative 5x squared divided by negative 5x leaves me with x. Positive 40x divided by negative 5x leaves me with negative 8. So what does that mean? Well, that means that either negative 5x equals 0 or that x minus 8 equals 0. Well, when I divide both sides by negative 5, I find out that x equals 0, and that makes sense because that's my starting point. And when I add 8 to both sides, I know that x equals 8. So that means it jumped a horizontal distance of 8 meters. It doesn't say it's meters, but negative 4.9 something is the meter, like the gravity pull for meters. So when it says approximate, that's what it means. So we're doing meters. Last one. The function f of t equals negative 5t squared plus 30t plus 80, and it models the approximate height of an object after it's launched. How many seconds does it take to hit the ground? So this object is doing this. Boop. Its starting height right here is 80 meters. That's how high it is when it starts. So when the time is 0, it's 80 meters in the air, right? This is not part of the parabola. This is the y-axis. Here's my x-axis. So we need to figure out when it's going to hit the ground. We're trying to figure out the other root. So that means we have to set it equal to 0 and factor. Negative 5t squared plus 30t plus 80. Well, Bryce, do you see a GCF that we can pull out of each one of those? Negative 5. Divide everything by negative 5 first. So 0 equals, I'm taking out my negative 5. Well, that leaves me with a positive t squared. 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6t. And 80 divided by negative 5 is negative 16. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 16, that when I add them, I get negative 6. What do you think? Well, let's see. 16. 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. That's it. 1, 16, 2, 8, 4, 4. Which one's going to work? What do you think, Viviana? Which one's going to work? Which one's going to be negative? The positive 2 or the 8? I need to have a sum of negative 6. That means I need the larger one to be negative. So negative 8. So this is t minus 8 times t plus 2. Well, I know that the t plus 2 is going to give me a negative time. And we know that we really can't travel back in time. So we can't have t equals negative 2 seconds. So that means t equals 8 seconds. So how many seconds after it's launched does it hit the ground? At 8 seconds. Yeah. It says, what is the maximum height? Well, that is asking me about my vertex. That's asking me about my vertex. I need to know how high it goes. I'm going to shrink this up. It also wants to know when it reaches its maximum height. So I'm going to do the bottom question first. X equals the opposite of B over 2A. And then I'm going to use whatever I get there to plug into the equation. So the opposite of 30 is negative 30 over 2 times negative 5. Well, that's negative 30 over negative 10, which equals 3. So it takes 3 seconds to reach the max height. It takes 3 seconds to reach the maximum height. What is the maximum height? Well, I'm trying to figure out what my height is when my time is 3. So that's negative 5 times 3 squared plus 30 times 3 plus 80. So let's see. Negative 5 times, what is 3 squared, Yvonne? What is 3 times 3? 9. So I have negative 5 times 9 plus, let's see, 30 times 3 is 90 plus 80. So what does this simplify to? What is my max height? Well, negative 45 plus 90 is a positive 45. 45 plus 80. My max height is 125 meters. Max height, 125 meters.